question, do so.
I just want to know how you got. I love this document. Don't get me wrong, but I'm wondering how you were able to do it without recourse from the Obama administration.
Well, as far as recourse, I've already alerted my accountant. I said, I'll probably get audited for at least the next 4 years, maybe longer. But as far as any other recourse goes, we haven't seen any. I mean, the Obama camp came out, his campaign came out trying to attack the movie. We rebutted that point by point. It was actually fairly simple to do. They had a lot of their facts wrong, which they seem to be doing a lot these days. But, we haven't had any other recourse. I mean, there's nothing to go back against the movie on. I mean, it's factual. We stick to the facts. We don't try to stretch the truth. We're not out there making salacious claims or anything else. This is mostly also from his autobiography. So if people want to argue with it, they're arguing against the president's own words, most of the case. So, I think we stand on very firm ground.
Very good. Very good. All right, so let's move on to another question. Sometimes I'm known for butchering names. I'm going to try. I think this is Adelaide. I'm going to go over to Adelaide and let her, if she'd like, ask a question.
Thank you. Did you come to the movie, obviously from the book, but did you come with it from the point of view that you already had, or did you change your point of view as you did the movie and learned more?
That's an excellent question. There's parts of it, since it was based on The Roots of Obama's Rage, which was Dinesh's first book, that were already kind of, we were going down that line. We were working with the anti-colonial thesis and looking at how the decisions and what was kind of being made as things were happening, how could that really work out? What did that look like in reality? Particularly when we got to various areas, how did this work out? So that part of it, there was a bit of it that was already informed. And then the second part of it, which actually turns into Dinesh's book, Obama's America, that part was during the filmmaking, and that informed the writing of that book and informed our filmmaking. There's stuff that was happening as we were going along. Egypt hadn't happened when Dinesh wrote his first book, so that happening, Libya happening, the Middle East occurring, as it did with the Arab Spring. We knew it was something that was going to be occurring. There was going to be an issue in the film, but we didn't know exactly how it would play out. Now that we have the issues in the Middle East that we're seeing right now with Benghazi, and also with Cairo, it's playing perfectly into the narrative of the movie if you've seen it. So, it's kind of a dialectic form that one informs the other as you kind of go along. So, yeah, that's kind of how we went into the movie.
Yeah, John, that was one of the things that actually struck me going back through the film again this week to watch it again and take some notes, was how up-to-date everything was. Really up until the Arab crisis of late, you guys had pretty much covered everything and had it included there, so that was great to see. All right, we're going to go over now to John Sawyer and see if he would like to ask a question of John.
Hi. Well, first of all, thank you for doing this discussion. I actually just watched the movie yesterday. I happened to be at Walmart, saw it at Redbox, and was like, I've got to rent it. So I did that. It's funny because a lot of the stuff I kind of knew from the 2008 election. I volunteered, so I knew a lot of stuff. I just didn't know to call it anti-colonialism. My question is, I guess I have two. I just kind of thought of them. One is, what was it like to work with Dinesh, and how did he balance the work life with being a college president of my alma mater, actually, at King's College? And two, I don't know. How did you get Lionsgate to be the distributor of it? Weren't they afraid of being audited or some sort of backlash as well? Oh, I guess I got a hit done. Sorry.
Yeah, the first question of working with Dinesh. It was a pleasure to work with Dinesh. It's been a pleasure to work with him. He's one of the brightest people I've ever met, and I really like the angle he brought to this. And I was even a skeptic of the anti-colonialism until I really read his book and started looking. Okay, what's making sense of all this? Obama didn't feel like a typical socialist to me. I mean, when he started taking over, even the auto GM takeover didn't feel exactly like a total government takeover the way it was. It was kind of being regulated. Yes, the bondholders were being pushed out, unions were being put in, but there's other ways that could have gone. That I think if he was a total socialist, it would have gone. So matching up the anti-colonial aspect of it that Dinesh brought, it was a really good angle. And it really was a lens and a filter to look through that made a lot of sense what the president was making. The Churchill bust suddenly made sense. Why does he send this one back that was in the Oval Office when the British say we can keep it, and kind of endangering that special relationship we've shared with the British? So there's all these little things that President Obama was doing, that didn't make sense outside of the anti-colonial. So I think Dinesh brought that, and it was a really good part of the narrative. And again, working with him was a really good thing. To your second question with Lionsgate, I think they saw an opportunity here. It was, a very hot film over the summer. It continues to be. Just to put in contrast, if you look at a movie like P.T. Anderson's The Master, had all this hype around it, huge hype around it. That movie's going to do probably $15, $16 million. This movie did 33.5. So I think it's from a financial standpoint, they did. They're also I think they feel that they can balance it off since they released Fahrenheit 9/11, so they've got the two top political documentaries on DVD.
Now I'm going to go back to John Sawyer here and let him, there were a couple of questions in there, so we'll let him ask anything else he might have before we move on.
Well, just as a college president, I mean, this movie seemed like it took a while to put together, so how did he balance the being a president of the King's College with making this movie and getting it out in a timely manner so that people could truly understand who Obama is as a person and as a president?
Yeah, I think the balance came. We shot in very short spurts, so we shot in very short, intensive spurts when we did do shooting. And that's kind of why the film has co-directed by myself and by Dinesh. There were times Dinesh actually took the crew and shot some stuff when it was available for him that I wasn't able to join them on, and there were other times that I was able to kind of film with Dinesh on that. And so, I think it was a delicate balance because being a college president is a very intense job, and also this film was very important for Dinesh to get out in a timely manner. In this way. So, we shot in very short, intense blocks of time. We edited in a very short, intense amount of time. So that was kind of a pressure cooker environment in a lot of ways because we only had so many days to get it. Particularly when we went to Kenya, Indonesia, and India. That was back-to-back trips, and it was a couple of weeks that Dinesh was able to take off from that. And then we were able to move on, and then here and there we were able to pick some stuff up. We had to shoot several times in New York, fly out a crew to meet with him. That's why sometimes you see him on the phone somewhere and you see somebody else on the phone, like Shelby Steele or Paul Kingor. And we had to send crews in different locations. So it created some filming challenges having to do that balance.
Very good. So we're going to move on to another question now. We actually have a question from Ron, who's not going to come on video, but he's posted it down in the comments here. He wants to know what the deal was with the grandfather being best friends with the communist. I think what he's referring to there is Frank Marshall Davis, and we've got a piece about him over at theblaze.com if you're interested in getting some more background on him. But I'll turn it over to you, John, and let you explain that relationship a little bit if you'd like.
The relationship there is the grandfather sought out a mentor, found Frank Marshall Davis living in Hawaii where they were living, and connected young Obama to Frank Marshall Davis, who's referred to in the Dreams from My Father as Old Frank, the poet Frank, referred to him about 20 times there. If you want a really good book that goes through Frank Marshall Davis, exhaustively, is Paul Kingor's book, The Communist, Frank Marshall Davis. So that's the one. I would pick that book up if you want more extensive. The other relationship, and we should have highlighted this. This is something people ask me, what didn't make it in the movie that you wish it would have, is the relationship between Frank Marshall Davis and Vernon Jarrett, who that Jarrett name may sound familiar, as in Valerie Jarrett. That's her father-in-law. Vernon Jarrett and Frank Marshall Davis were best friends in Chicago, so there's a deep connection there. So that's something, that's another big connection Obama has in his Frank Marshall Davis past. Oh, looks like somehow we lost Billy there.
Little technical difficulty there, but let's move on. Now, there were some other founding fathers as well. There's Jeremiah Wright, and you go through a number of them, and as I mentioned, we profiled Frank Marshall Davis, but we also profiled all of the other founding fathers over on theblaze.com that you talk about in the film. Were there any other founding fathers or individuals who were influential that you didn't include? And of the five, which do you think was the most impactful over President Obama's life?
Yeah, I think the one we probably didn't include, like I said, is I think there's some influence by Vernon Jarrett. We see that with Valerie Jarrett coming about. That's one I looked in retrospect, we probably should have included. You have Derek Bell at Harvard, the professor there with critical race theory, and at Harvard, who Obama has as a professor, and that's the videotape we have of him at Harvard there. I think the most influential one, if you kind of look through all of them, and you look at this, I kind of believe that Frank Marshall Davis is probably the most influential. He sat at his feet from the age of 10 until the age of 18, had some ongoing correspondence with him through his life and at that time. And then the other one you have to look at, the other father, is his real father, his biological father, Barack Obama Sr., and how his mother held him out as a mythological kind of hero for him his whole life. People ask me, well, how could he have an influence on, him? He only met him one time. He spent a month with him in Hawaii. Well, I'm not the one who wrote the book, Dreams from My Father. I mean, that's a pretty telling idea right there. My dad was a big influence on me. I lost him when I was 15. But at the same time, I've never written a book called Dreams from My Father. And held that out as kind of the accountable, person in my life that I'm trying to live up to in that way. So his actual father was probably the most influential figure, or I should say the ghost of his father was the most influential figure in his life.
And I guess one of the questions that people have, and I know a lot of people have said this, as you're looking at the full scope, you're looking at these founding fathers, you're seeing the influence, who they are. There's communism, there's some radical ideas, you have Bill Ayers with terrorism. There's a lot of questions about these people, and I think the thing that a lot of people wonder is why the mainstream media has sort of avoided diving into these subjects. Outlets like The Blaze have, we've looked at these people, we've explored them, but John, why do you think the mainstream media has avoided doing what you guys have done in this film here?
I think that's a great question. I mean, that created the opportunity for the film, to be honest. I mean, nobody had done this kind of the connecting of the dots. It was very important for me aesthetically when we have that little graphic on the film of the founding fathers, and we kind of lay them out, and Obama's in the center of them. To do that, to say these are the connection points. These are the people this man sought out in his life. These weren't accidental or casual experiences. These are people he worked with regularly, went to their classes to, whether it be Edward Said or Roberto Unger. These are people that he really did seek out. Now, why? Your question, Billy, was why did the media kind of not do this? I honestly don't. I think part of it was the whole Messiah thing that that happened with Obama. He was the guy who was supposed to be the great uniter, and let's not delve too deeply into his past. And don't people have all kinds of different little people in their past that are kind of weird and idiosyncratic in that way? I don't think so. Not with this guy. These were people that were sought out. They're very. He's very particular about who he hung out with, who he selected. He even says that in college, when he goes in Occidental in his own autobiography. He was very careful about the friends he hung out with, and in selecting out these professors and these mentors and these founding fathers, as we've dubbed them, in that way. So, I don't know why the mainstream media didn't do this. I mean, it's a great question, but at the same time, it creates opportunities like, our movie, The Blaze, and other outlets that are doing their homework on this.
Very good. Now, we have John Sawyer wants to speak again. Let him ask a question, but we're first going to go to Laurel, who has not yet asked a question, and give her a shot at doing so.
Hi, how are y'all today? I just wanted to ask you, when you were doing the research for the movie, how much more did you find out about his actual legitimacy as far as being a United States citizen?
So the question I heard there was a little bit loud for me, but the question I heard there was, when we were doing research, how much legitimacy did we find of him being a U.S. citizen, I think is the question that I heard. So in that, we state and we believe in the film, believe that, he was born here in America. If you look at it, there were 2 birth announcements that came out at that time, right when he was born. I think it would have been very hard to have faked those situations, and that's a long, you're talking now Manchurian kind of candidate type stuff, which gets you off into a whole different level of stuff on this. But I think when you look at this, there are definitely some questions that go on. Where's the Social Security number from? What did he use a U.S. How did he get into Pakistan in the 80s? There's questions that abound like that. Why are his college records sealed? Those are all questions that I think are very legitimate and need to be raised, and I wish were raised in a public forum. I wish that, during a debate, there would be a great question of President, we hear about your economic policies, but we don't know what economics classes you took at Columbia because your records are sealed. That'd be a great debate statement, I think, from Governor Romney. Because I do think there's legitimate questions here. This is a president we don't know about, and I think this is why the movie resonated with people so strongly and why it did the business it did. I think for the first time, a lot of people understood who this president was, because going back to the question we just had, the media has not done their job in vetting this president. And that was what this movie was really about, explaining who Barack Obama was and is, and where he would take America if he got a second term.
Yeah, we live in this society where people want to know everything about everybody. We saw Bush's transcripts, we saw John Kerry's transcripts years ago, and so people are curious. They want to know what classes Obama took, how he did, and things like that. And so it's an interesting question on the transcript front. Now we are going to go back and let John Sawyer ask another question here.
Well, this is kind of back to what we were talking about before Laurel spoke about why what I took away from the movie is why the media didn't vet him very well, is because they got vested in, he's the first black man, serious candidate running for president, and also once they got vested in that, they made it their agenda to make sure that they saw it happen, which leads into another documentary that I've seen that came out right after the 2008 election, which is Media Malpractice, which is not, I know we're here to talk about 2016, but that's another great documentary to check out to see why and how the media dropped the ball as far as that is concerned. So I just wanted to mention that's kind of what I took away from the movie, is that once they got vested in that, they didn't want to see him fail.
No, and people forget, too. Remember, he took on the Clinton machine and dismantled it during the 2008 election. And so even there, you had this kind of force of nature that was happening. And, as John is saying, his term is that the media was invested in that. And I definitely feel it. People got swept up in this. You remember Chris Matthews had the tingle going up his leg. I mean, you don't have reporters saying that. They shouldn't be saying that, to be honest. I will say, at the inauguration, when it was on, I was very proud that America had elected, its first African-American president. That was something I was very proud of that we had done in that way. I wish it would have been somebody different, like Alan West, but it was Barack Obama. But in that way, I do think that there was a whole sweeping up. There was the whole hope and change thing that was going on, and yeah, I believe that the media just kind of went right along with it.
Yeah, and speaking to that point and the statement and the question that we just had, I asked you before, why you guys set on the path to making this project. But John, what is it that you want people, just to give you sort of another way of answering that question, what do you want people to walk away with after they see 2016? What's the takeaway message or messages for viewers?
I think it's in our tagline. You may love him, you may hate him, but you don't know him. And I think at the end of the film we say, now you know him. And I think that's it. I think people have to understand the big idea here from 2016 is, we're not having a conversation about a liberal or conservative, a Republican or a Democrat. Barack Obama thinks on a whole different term. He thinks as a global citizen. So he's not thinking about what is the best, interest of America. It's how can I make America the best global citizen it can be. And that's a totally different inverted way of looking at how America's priorities should be set, both on an economic level, a foreign policy level. I mean, this is a big inverted worldview. We've never encountered that before. Even somebody like a Ted Kennedy, who I would count kind of the most kind of progressive, kind of liberal out there in that way, would have put America first. So when Obama's talking about redistribution of wealth, he's not talking about within America. We're going to redistribute against our classes here, our socioeconomic classes here. We're talking on a global scale. We're going to take the 1%, you got 1% is America, and you got 99 poor nations out there. And that's the way he's thinking about it. I think that's the biggest takeaway we want people to do. And I think they really take that away from the film. I mean, the feedback we've gotten.
Very good. Now we're going to turn it over to Nancy Black, who just joined us. We will let her ask her question of 2016.
I have a question about how do you connect the dots between anti-colonialism and socialism, communism. I think that anti-colonialism is just a nice way to say it, because I believe that Barack Obama is a socialist/communist. And why did you choose the term anti-colonialist versus socialist?
Well, there is a distinction to be made, and I'll go off kind of a little bit into the weeds here on this one a little bit. And what happens in anti-colonialism is there's a belief that the West is getting wealthy, not through hard work, not through innovation, not through technological change, but the West is getting wealthy simply by stripping the wealth away from poor countries that they're occupying, colonizing in this way. And the U.S. is now seen as the new neo-colonial power through its kind of trifecta of military might, cultural influence, and then through its capitalism. Free market economy is seen as the new neo-colonial power, and is kind of assumed that from Britain, in the last century. So what you have in the neo-colonialism, how this differs from say, straight-up communism. Actually, Marx and Lenin got into this. Marx is saying, look, colonialism is not an issue because capitalism is eventually going to fail. Therefore, it's just a natural outworking of it. Lenin had a different view of it. Lenin actually thought that colonialism was an issue. This was the West exporting its issues, its capitalist issues, and extending the life of capitalism before there would be the natural collapse. So what you have, actually, if you look at it, is anti-colonialism is a step that's needed before you can move on to kind of the more dramatic socialism and or communist points. Now, well, how does this differ? Well, one of the ways it really differs is actually the instruments that are used. You don't kind of have a government control takeover of, say, a GM. What you do is you use regulation to kind of really come in and hamstring them in that way. You also confiscate back through taxation in the anti-colonial. If you look at Barack Obama Sr.'s paper, Problems with Our African Socialism, this is very spelled out in this. It's talking about how the West is coming in, establishing new businesses, Kenya's not prospering. I would highly recommend just picking that up, and it really kind of details what's the differences between, and they're subtle. I mean, I'm not arguing against it, but it's a big major step that has to happen before communism could really move in and kind of take full force and weight and be the full government control of all business regulation and means of labor and capital.
Very good. That's actually very helpful to sort of connect the dots on that. So let me ask this, and I know that this was being asked down in the comments section. What's next? Is there another film that you guys are thinking of doing? Is there a follow-up? And I imagine maybe some of that will depend on what happens in November, but I'll throw it over to you, and you can tell us if there is anything planned and what you guys are thinking at this juncture.
Well, I'm hoping there isn't a sequel. I'll be very candid about that and put that out there. You know, I hope that there isn't a 2020 movie that comes up. If it does, it'll have to be about some other candidate with Barack Obama, even if he wins a second term, being done in 2016. You know, Dinesh and I have talked about doing something on American exceptionalism, something more on the positive side of this, and I think it would be very beneficial for, you know, to really kind of, one of the books that was very influential to me was de Tocqueville's Democracy in America. And I read that as a college student. I've returned to it several times throughout the years. And I think talking about what does make America so great, which is one of Dinesh's books, talking about our charity, our free market capitalism, our liberty, the fact that we ensconce these into our Constitution, that, you know, the American experiment is exactly that. It's an American experiment. You know, Ronald Reagan said, you know, democracy, liberty is one generation away from extinction, and we need to fight for it. I think we need to remind people periodically, you know, why is America great? What makes this country so great? What really works for it? What are some of those success stories? You know, so too often we hear about the negatives. There are so many great success stories in America that we keep picking up. You know, just the other day, I was reminded by somebody who he was a man from Russia, had come over here in 1983, and he said, you know, America is great. I do not want this country to go down because America is so special. And he came up to me after a screening, and he goes, we've got to do everything we can not to let communism and socialism, you know, and he goes, I see Americans falling in love with socialism, and it's a bad, bad thing. So I think, you know, we need to be reminded from time to time about why America is so great, why the free markets are great, why personal liberty is great.
And so, you know, with that, I'm actually I was going to give you my last question, but I'm going to let Lizzie ask you one more, and then we'll close it up after that. So, Lizzie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
I noticed you touched on a few of the people that affected Obama's past and who he is today. Some of the things that I wanted to see was some of the people that have been killed, or mysteriously died, or murdered before his presidency and during his presidency, basically to keep him quiet. Like they mentioned, they had offered him $150,000 to his previous Greek pastor. You touched on that, but what about the other ones? Were you not able to find enough evidence or documentation or anything to find out what happened to some of these folks?
Yeah, I think when you're making a documentary, you always want to stay kind of in what you call the bounds. I mean, you want to stay in bounds on everything. If there's anything that's kind of conjecture, starts kind of really pushing the boundaries that you can't, like, back up, you know, and demonstrate through multiple sources, you know, you kind of want to not go in those ways. So, you know, even one of the things, too, and one of the things I wish we would have had more in the film is we interviewed people who knew President Obama through his time at Punahou, his time at Occidental, his time at Harvard. We asked them all, would you come on camera and talk about these situations? People knew him as a community organizer, and none of them would appear on camera. And part of the reason was they didn't want to have any sort of retribution. So we could have told their stories in other ways. We could have done that. We're inventive filmmakers that can think through these kind of things and be imaginative of how to do that. But at the same time, if we couldn't double source it, we didn't want to put it in. And that was kind of everything we did that way. That's why even when the Obama campaign attacked us about the movie and trying to make some points, it was so easy to rebut because we knew all the issues inside and out, and we were able to kind of respond very quickly and source the issues for them and say, here's where you said that. Here's President Obama talking about American exceptionalism. Well, the comment he makes is Americans are exceptional, just like the British think they're exceptional, and the Greeks probably think they're exceptional. That's not exceptionalism. That's everybody gets a ribbon for participation, and nobody's exceptional. So if we didn't have that, we didn't want to include it in the film.
Fair enough. So my last question for you to round this out. So say Obama does get another term. In your view, what does that mean for America?
Well, we're going to sell a lot more DVDs if he gets a second term. Sorry, just joking. But I think what it does mean for America is I think it's going to be a disaster for foreign policy. I really do. I think we're already seeing that played out in the Middle East. I mean, that is going to take a generation or more to correct in that situation. We see the Middle East turning more and more to Islamists who are coming after, that don't see America in a good light. I think that, one of the quiet things in the background, if people want to check this out, is look at what's going on in Kuwait. Kuwait is moving more and more towards an Islamist government in that way, and that kind of has been lost in the background of Libya and Egypt and what's been going on. But you've got Jordan, who sits on the border of Israel. You've got the Saudis, and those have all been fairly friendly to the West. And I think you're going to see a lot of pressure put on them by the Islamist factions within those countries. And somebody explained it to me, and they made a very good point. They said, look, at all these borders you guys look at from the West in the Middle East, those are artificial to us. We align more by ideology. And I had a special forces officer who came to a screening, saw it, and he said, look, I was in Afghanistan, and he goes, look, the dialects we were hearing were not all Pushtun and the other ones that were, indigenous to the region. We heard Chechen, Saudi, all kinds of different ones. And the reason why is they're unified by an ideology, a religious ideology, coming together. And these borders are false borders. They are looking to exactly what we explained in the film. A United States of Islam is what they're looking at. If you go back and look at a caliphate, for lack of a better term, in this situation. So I think that's going to be one major thing, is we're going to see foreign policy really, really suffer and be set back probably at least 20 years if there's a second term. The other thing is our economy. So many people are sitting on the sidelines. So many small businesses, people who are looking to start small businesses are sitting on the sidelines, and medium-sized businesses not putting money into our economy, looking for other opportunities because they are very, very afraid of this president and the fact that he's been the most probably anti-business president we've ever seen, ever. I mean, not kind of in our lifetime, I mean ever. And so I think our economy is going to suffer. We're going to see stagnant job rates. I mean, if people really want to look at a good rate, I think, as the labor rate participation rate, it's the lowest it's been since 1981. Right after Reagan takes office, he's still kind of going through, with Jimmy Carter's stagnation and suffering the misery index Carter talked about. But, that's at 63%. I think it's like 63.7% to be exact. That's the lowest. And that is a better true kind of look at than really even looking at the unemployment rate. And again, say it's been the lowest it's been in the lowest participation, which is a negative indicator. That's the lowest it's been in 30 years, is a strong telling of who this president is and where this country would go again.
Well, thank you very much. This has been really informative, and if people are interested in getting more information on the film, they can go to 2016themovie.com. I will throw it to you one more time, John, just if there's anything you want to say about the film that you haven't had a chance to say yet, and then we will be closing out the show.
Well, I just hope people get a chance to see it, and if you have seen it, please put something on our Facebook page out there. Let us know you've seen it. If you're bringing friends to it on that side, we really appreciate it. And again, we have DVDs are available. We try to make them as low as possible so people can grab multiple copies and give them to friends so they can watch it. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we've made a movie. I think we've explained a lot about who this president is. We've vetted him in a way that, you know, the other mainstream media hasn't done. And, you know, I think it makes a very compelling case of where America would be in 2016. And it's one I don't think most Americans would want to see for their children or their grandchildren.
Thanks again, John. Have a good night, everyone.